for those of you who are familiar, well, everyone's familiar with Next Gen, obviously, otherwise you wouldn't be here, right? So, I want to put your hands together right now, first for Miss Gates McFadden, please. And also, yeah, you might know him, Mr. Patrick Stewart, Sir Patrick Stewart. All right, we are here.
Are we supposed to take notes on this?
Yes.
I am going to be grading you, Garrett, on 1 to 3 on how you perform. And you're already at 2.
I'm at 2. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. First of all, I would like to say I have a gift for you, Patrick. Essentially, you often tell a story about how at a certain convention you were at in the past, you were given a tour of the dealer's room. And you came across one dealer that had a box and a sign on it which said, and he was an action figure seller, and it said, buy one Data, get 2 Rikers free, right? Because that story brought me so much laughter, I decided that this is a gift for you that you have to have.
You know who never laughs at that story?
Number 1, maybe, I'm guessing. Anyway.
Actually, it's not true, is it? Jonathan loves that story.
So we actually have these shirts down at the Cosmic City booth at 1007 in the America's Mart if you want to have a shirt just like Patrick. Now, we have questions, we have microphones set up over here, and we have microphones set up over there. So please do not feel shy, and come on up and get your question ready. Do we have anybody queued up on this side? On the right?
Hi all, this is a question for both of you. So obviously, while you were airing the television show, you told stories about how there was a lot of jocularity off camera, and that kind of, that created a great rapport on screen. My question is, when you guys were filming the movies, particularly the later ones, and there's that time in that separation, when you became an ensemble again, was it sort of like putting on a comfortable pair of shoes and everybody just fell into step without a problem, or did you kind of need to have a potluck or a get-together to kind of get everybody into the swing of things? And just an anecdote about that would be great. Thank you.
That was such a complex question.
Yeah. I think we can move on. I mean, that was more of a statement than a question. But Gates, come on, you could do something with that. I know you could.
Oh, yes. It always seems to be the same when we get our spacesuits on. It's like, it is sort of like riding a unicycle. It comes back to you. But yeah, the movies we were on location, so it was a different feeling. It wasn't being in the studios, but yeah, same old thing, I would say, yes.
For me, it was nothing like riding a unicycle. But you may not know this, but Gates is a gymnast, an acrobat, a tumbler, a circus performer. I mean, no, seriously. I mean, many of these skills Gates was trained in acquiring. And, it was never, I don't know, the bond between all of us became so strong during those 7 years, 6 years in your case, Gates, but I guess not really comradely of me to bring that up. But I believe in truth.
I do too.
So there we are. The bond was so strong between all of us that all that happens to it is that it stretches and then it clicks back together again like that. It never ever breaks. How's that for a metaphor?
That was intense. That was very intense. Yeah, I think that's good. I will share. I will share one of the things though. I think we were talking about glasses backstage and how I've become very, very blind. I mean, without them. But I remember after Descent, you had been gone, and I was running the ship. I was actually driving the ship. And I thought, oh, I'm going to do a gag when Patrick comes back. I'm going to, really make it funny. We had the first rehearsal at 7:30 in the morning on the bridge, which I had been running. So I got the props people to get me frames, and I put pictures of Will Wheaton up on Wesley Crusher, and then I put Riker up, and I had a champagne thing with the champagne bottle, and I was in curlers in a bathrobe, and then I had some guys who were sort of stripped to their waist, and they were sort of working the computers, and so I did all this thing, and Patrick comes in without his glasses and doesn't see anything. And I was sort of like, oh, hi, Patrick, it's me. Oh, hello, darling. So that's how funny it was working with him.
I do remember that, and it was brilliant and really entertaining. And it was wonderful. You ran the ship, and so you made a few changes here and there. Unlike Marina, who just crashed it. It's true, she smashed the Enterprise.
That is true, yeah.
We do have to make one announcement. We want to refrain from flash photography. There's certain individuals that are in the audience that could be affected by that, so please refrain from flash photography. A question from the other side, please. Don't be shy. I know there's people in line here.
Thank you both for coming back to DragonCon. We love having you here. I had a question for Sir Patrick. I believe you once told us an awesome story about filming of Chain of Command, Part 1, the episode where Picard gets tortured. In the early part, you had some funny stories, I believe, one of which involved Crusher and a cave-in, I believe. If you don't mind retelling.
What about it?
We'd love to hear it again.
As I've grown older and time has gone by, I find myself just a little bit uncomfortable about that story. And so, if you don't mind, I will pass on the retelling of it, but just keep it, as you remember it, warm in your heart. And just don't repeat it. Actually, the fact is, I really need Michael Dorn here to tell that story because he was part of it. So, when the next time you see the two of us together, bring it up.
Okay, we have a question from the other side. Thank you.
Sir Patrick, for you, sir. You told in Chicago one time the prologue to the show with a French accent. And I was wondering if you would repeat that. My wife was not in that panel and she missed that one. And I've told her that I do a horrible job imitating you talking with a French accent.
Is your wife here now?
She is. Garrett, if you'd say hello to her too, since you've already talked to her.
Hi. Space. The final fun. These are the boys on the Starship Enterprise.
Merci Jean-Luc. Jean-Luc, c'est moi.
Très bien.
Gates is fluent French speaking, authentically, and so now I'm very uncomfortable. Somewhere in the vaults of Paramount Pictures, there is indeed a tape when I was put on camera before we began filming Encounter at Farpoint, of me reading a scene with a French accent because they thought maybe I should have a French accent. And of course, you know who it sounded like. It sounded like Peter Sellers. Inspector Clouseau. You are under feu. No, we did have a deal about how I spoke, because you may have noticed that my accent is a little different from others, and we agreed that all technical terms would be Americanized, and command terms. So I think I always said lieutenant and not lieutenant, and I said command and not command.
But you said secrete instead of secret sometimes. Remember that? So we were all like, what is he saying? Something, yeah, the microbes are secreting and what? You know. Something.
I'm
I
sure
don't know
you're
what.
right. Yeah. Oh, happy days. All gone. Oh. No, they're not. They're not all gone at all. They're fantastic and still with us.
I just wanted to interject. Yesterday I talked about when I first met Gates. It was at a gas station, and she needed money to help pay for gas, which was the truth. She had left her pocketbook at home, and I walked up to her and I said, hi, and I'm Garrett. I'm on the new Star Trek. She said, oh my gosh, I have to be at the airport, and do you have $5 to help me pay for gas? Which I did.
I wasn't quite that rude, but close.
Okay, it was wonderful. But I want to talk about the first time I met Patrick, actually, and Sir Patrick. It was the third episode of Voyager being filmed, and you were visiting. You were sitting with the director at the time in the director's chair. So I walked onto the set, not knowing. I didn't see the memo that you were going to be there. You just showed up. So I walked onto the set, and I was like, he's here. He's here. So I walked up to you. And I said, hello, Mr. Stewart. I said, I'm Garrett. And you said, I know who you are. At which point, I was like, what? He knows me? I mean, we had filmed 3 episodes, right? And so then he said, I had a chance to watch your pilot episode, Caretaker. And he said, excellent work. And at that point, I went, oh. I felt like I had been knighted by Patrick Stewart. You, Sir Harry of Kim. Do you remember that, Tommy?
I do remember that.
Yeah.
And I remember especially that visit, because I had been holding off. It was a little awkward at times, wasn't it, Gates?
Because those were your sets. Those were the same sets you were working.
Yeah, I know. It was really strange. I'd had a conversation with Kate, who I knew, of course.
Right.
We'd met in the past, never worked together.
Right.
But I always felt, it's like when I was in rep, when we were doing a different play every week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and you had a play out, and you go into the theater, it never felt as though you should be there.
Yeah,
You felt out of place somehow, and that's all it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope I didn't embarrass.
No, you made my day.
The impersonation, by the way, is really awful.
I haven't worked on it long enough to be as good as Brett Spiner's.
Yeah,
I need to work. I'm going to call Brett.
Brett
will tutor me. Thank you. Okay, let's take a question from this side.
But I got a question.
Okay,
What is this thing about borrowing money, Gates?
Well, I was going to ask you afterwards. I was just going to do it backstage. If I wanted to borrow a little bit more. No, I was shooting something. I was shooting a series marker in Hawaii.
Yes.
And I actually had my purse or something, but I didn't have the cash. I had left it on the counter, and it was kind of crucial that I get my ass to the airport. That's kind of what it was.
Right.
And I did recognize Garrett. And I went, yes, hello, Garrett, wonderful. Do you have $5? I think it was a little bit like that, you know, but I was so embarrassed, but really months and years later, I promise you I paid him back that $5. It was $5. Okay? I did.
She did. An envelope showed up about 7 months later, and it said, "To Garrett from Gates. Thank you."
Yeah, it took me a while to earn that money, but I was good. You know?
Yes.
What was the location of this encounter?
The gas station at the bottom of Beechwood Canyon and Franklin, right there. Yes. And
There's a plaque on the wall. Can I tell you about an encounter I had? I may have told this before, but if I have, forgive me. When I went to live and work in Los Angeles, a lot of people gave me all kinds of advice, and a lot of it was about security, what not to do in order, to stay in one piece. And one of the things I was told was, if you ever have to use a cash machine, a Versatel, a cash point, whatever you call them, do not use them after dark. And if you have to, make sure it's on a busy street, because people wait for people to take cash out. Well, one night I was, just like Gates, I was desperate for cash. We'd been working late. It was maybe very late. It could have been, oh, I know what it was. It was Friday, so it was late. It was well past midnight, and Maria, my wonderful maid, was coming the next morning, and I always paid her on a Saturday morning, and I had no money to pay her. So driving past, it was a Bank of America, I remember, I realized there was a car park lot in the back, and I pulled in, but it meant going all the way around the back of the bank. So and this was on Melrose, so it was out of the way. And so and voice said in my head, "You've been told not to do this." But anyway, I went up and I got my card out, and I think, just be quick, put it in, blah, blah, blah. But come on. When a car cruised around the corner very slowly, with two guys in it, and stopped immediately behind me. This is the moment. This is when it happens. I'm just going to hand everything over. I'm just going to say, "Please don't hurt me," and give them everything. And I heard a window go down, and I'm still waiting for the thing to come through, and I heard a voice say, "You Patrick Stewart." I turned around and I said, "Yes." And the guy looked at me and he said, "I love this town."